Hi everyone, it's Kathy. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm super excited to share with you today the STAMPTEMBER set collaboration between Simon Says Stamp and Whimsy stamps. These pugs are so cute. The stamp set is called Happy Pugmas, and there are 5 little pug images, and then there's a little present and a Christmas tree and 6 different sentiments. So today I'll be sharing with you 3 cards that I created using this stamp set. And to keep the length of the video at a decent length, I'm only going to share how I colored one of the pugs, and then I'll share how I colored the accessories on the pugs or with the pugs. I did use the exact same colors for all of the pugs, and I did go for a center highlight on all of them as well. So to color in the pugs, I started out with their muzzles, and for that I used W6 and added that on the outer edges so that I could maintain that center highlight. Then I came in with W4 and blended it all out with W3. For their bodies, I started out with E47 and added that in where the shadows would be the darkest. Then I blended that out with E44, then E43, and E42. I decided to come in with E49 on some of them where I wanted to have deeper shadows, and if I did bring in the E49, I would then blend that out with the E47 and the E44. For their little tongues, I used R20 and R00, and the coloring was really very simple. These images are a good size. They're not too small, they're not too big, and they're really easy to color. And the expressions on these little pugs' faces just make me smile. As you know, with all of the STAMPTEMBER stamp sets, there is only a limited number available. So if you think that these guys are the cutest things ever, which personally I think they are, you want to jump over to simonsaysstamp.com and pick up your set, because I have a feeling that this set is going to sell out in no time at all. Anyway, moving right along, after I was done coloring in the pug, I started to work on his little elf shoes and his little elf hat. And for his shoes, I started with G05 and just did a line along the bottom of that, and then filled the rest in with YG03. For the trim on his little elf shoes, I used R29. Some of the areas on these images are pretty small, so I kept the coloring really simple. The other thing that I did was I kept with one color palette for all of the images, even though I did end up using quite a few markers, just to keep things really, really simple. Anyway, after I was done coloring in his hat, I started to work on the little Christmas tree guy, and I started with YG17 and added that around the outer edges of the Christmas tree, and then at the bottom, I guess it's kind of like the bottom of the tree where it's kind of like a collar, I did the same thing. I just kept the darkest color where the shadows would naturally occur. After the YG17, I came in with YG03 and colored in the rest of the tree. And then I decided that I needed to have a little bit more texture or definition to the tree, so I came in with YG67. For the ornaments, I kept those very simple. I just used R29 and R14. I'll make sure to have all of the colors that I used listed in the description box below, as well as all of the other products that I used, because I did incorporate a bunch of different dyes from Whimsy stamps as well. With that being said, I'll go ahead and I'll play a little bit of music for you while I finish up this coloring, and then I'll be back to put the cards together. After I had all of the coloring done, I started to work on finishing up my first card. So I stamped the present onto a piece of red cardstock with VersaMark ink and heat embossed it with detail white embossing powder. Once it was cool enough, I used a white gel pen to add some polka dots to my little presents, and then I did fussy cut each one of them out. To get a little bit of a snowy background, I stenciled white ink onto a piece of vellum with the Polka Dot Stencil by Whimsy stamps. I used the same detail white embossing powder on top of the vellum. And a trick with embossing vellum is you want to make sure that your heat tool is nice and hot. Mine was off to the side heating up the whole time I was doing the stenciling. And you want to move quickly with the heat tool on vellum so that you don't scorch it. Once that was heat set, I set it aside so that it could cool off a little bit. And I had die cut a circle from a piece of white cardstock and put a bunch of foam tape behind that, and then adhered the vellum layer on top of that. And to give it just a little bit of a blue background behind the snowy background, I just trimmed a piece of light blue cardstock down so it would fit behind the circle. I used my regular tape runner to adhere that to the back side of the vellum. Then I added a bunch of foam tape to the back of that and added it to the front of my note card, which is a top folding A2 size note card from Neenah Classic Crest 80-pound cardstock. I also put foam tape on the back of the pug and the little heat embossed presents and added those to the front of the card. And to finish it up, I added a little bit of sparkle with my Wink of Stella glitter pen to her bow and then the ribbon on the green present. And that finishes up card number 1. For the second card, I decided to make a shaker card. So I die cut a piece of white cardstock using the Peekaboo Window number 3 die from Whimsy Stamps. I put some Scor-Tape around the edges behind those little circles so I could add my acetate. Once I had the acetate in place, I added a bunch of foam tape to the back side of that cardstock. And when making a shaker card, you want to make sure that the contacts between your foam tape are really very close so your shaker bits don't fall out. I found the easiest way to do this particular card was to use the foam sticky strips. And I did remove the release paper before I put it around those circles because it makes it easier to manipulate the foam strips to make them curve around those circles. After I added the rest of the foam tape to the back of that frame, I added in my clear sequins for my shaker bits. I had cut a piece of patterned paper down from the Busy Bees paper pack to just slightly smaller than 4 by 5 1/4. And added that to the back of my shaker window. I added some foam tape to the back of the pugs and adhered those into place. I used liquid glue to adhere that to the front of my note card, which is the top folding A2 size note card, also from Neenah Classic Crest cardstock. Next, I stamped a sentiment using VersaFine Onyx black ink, and then I ran it through my die cut machine using one of the quick strips dies, also from Whimsy Stamps, and used liquid glue to adhere that to the front of the card. And that finishes up the second card. Moving on to the third card, this one was pretty quick and easy and fairly clean and simple. I started out by running a piece of green cardstock through my Gemini Junior with a Wonky stitched rectangle die. Then I randomly stamped the Christmas tree with Catherine Pooler's Lime Rickey ink. I die cut a piece of white cardstock using the smallest rounded rectangle die from Whimsy Stamps and stamped the sentiment using VersaFine Onyx black ink. I wanted to add a little bit more red to this card, so I used the Rockin red ink pad from Catherine Pooler and just ran it along the edges so there would be a little bit of a red border. I put some foam tape on the back of the pug and adhered him in place. I used my tape runner to adhere the green piece of cardstock to the front of a top folding A2 size note card. I put some foam tape on the back of that rounded rectangle, and then I thought it would be really cute if I turned it into a tag. So I punched a hole in the top and threaded some red ribbon through it, finished adding more foam tape to the back of the tag and adhered that in place, and that finishes up the final card. Here's another look at all 3 cards. Don't forget this stamp set is in limited quantity. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, I'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.